Hello. My voice is a little challenged. I'm going to go for it. Oops. The goodbye. This is the part that people don't like to talk about too much. However, it's important. Making a decision to go for the green goodbye, the natural burial, help restores land and protect it, and even return it back to wildlife preserve. We don't like to talk too much about death in this culture, but it's a huge event in people's lives. We celebrate births months before the arrival. Every year we celebrate our birthdays. Death gets a bum rap. We just don't talk about it. I like what Woody Allen said about death. He said, I'm not afraid of dying, I just don't want to be there when it happens. I think that's kind of a general feeling, but it's important to address. It's emotional. We need to do it. I see a lot of young people out there, and I'm sure you're not thinking about death. However, we have about 170 people buried at Greensprings, and the average age there of those 170 people is 59. That means that half of those people are under 59. We can't predict the future, never know what's going to happen, so it's important to make a plan. Just even if it's to let somebody know how you want to be buried. And I encourage you today, you've got a little blank space on the back of your book to write down 3 things that you want somebody to know if something ever happened to you before you planned it. I had the experience to talk with my mom about this last year. Her health was failing, and I needed to know some details. I already knew she wanted to be buried at Greensprings because she was one of the first ones to purchase a plot soon after we opened in May of 2006. She was a good supporter. Thank you, Mom. And I didn't know the details. It was hard for me to talk to her about the details. You know, do you want a casket? Do you want a shroud? I didn't know, and I didn't want to bring it up. Finally, one day the opportunity came. She pulled out her address book and was looking for a friend's name. And I said, Mom, you know, when you go on your next adventure, I'm going to need to call some of the people in this book. Who would you like me to call? That was the way I dealt with it. I called it a next adventure. We have all kinds of terms for it. Kicking the bucket, going to greener pastures, riding off into the sunset for the last time. All the different ways we talk about death. So she said, yeah, I don't want to be in a box. Great, I thought. A shroud. And then I said, is there anything else you'd like me to know about your final wishes, the ceremony? She said, nope. I said, great. Us kids will take care of that. So approaching the topic, it's something everybody needs to do, even if you're young. Just let somebody know what your final wishes are. Natural burial is an experience, really. I've been to most of the burials at Greensprings, and it's really a heart-to-heart connection with people at a time that is precious and difficult, very emotional. So let's go to Greensprings and where are the graves? This is Otto doing again. I'm going to go back. This is a grave site, a typical grave at Greensprings. You see the hole in the ground. I'm sorry, this is advancing. you see the hole in the ground and you see the mound of earth there. It's very real. Nothing is hidden. Children will go up there and stand and look down into the grave, and they might spend a couple of seconds there. They might spend 30 seconds there. I think the kids really understand it better than a lot of the adults because we grew up in a culture where we didn't deal with this kind of thing. At Greensprings, we allow no bodies that are embalmed. So we don't believe that that's the natural process of the cycle of life. I'm having a problem with this. It's automatically going. I'm going to back up. Okay, no embalmed bodies and biodegradable caskets. That means a simple pine box. We do allow homemade caskets. We've had actually several homemade caskets. Sometimes people know ahead of time if there's a terminally ill family patient. But we do ask that you refer to our website for dimensions. We really like it when the casket goes into the grave on burial day. We had a couple of close calls. We do have a good website that gives a lot of information about particulars, that being one of them. This is an example of a shroud, a body wrapped in a shroud, a natural fabric shroud. Can be cotton, silk, linen, wool. We had a wool casket about a month ago that was really beautiful, the first one I'd seen. Flush to the ground natural field stones. Oftentimes these are found at a grave when we open the grave. We allow commemorative plantings. And this is a grave that it's probably a year or two old. There'll be a good-sized mound that will settle over time. People can plant on these. We have a list on our website that gives the native plants of the area, particularly up there on the hilltop. A lot of those attract particular kinds of birds, butterflies. There's a little blue butterfly that's endangered, and we have a plant that attracts that. So I love that part about it. It's a good place for families to be after the burial. The children, like I said, they have a place to run around in nature, and it's a connection that happens that is very special. We do burials all year round, winter, spring, summer, and fall. This is where the casket has been placed over the crossboards, and usually the family is responsible for lowering. If not, we also will provide pallbearers. But it's a good thing to be involved in. It's good for the closure part of it. A lot of different kinds of ceremonies. We've had everything from all types of religious, cultural ceremonies and military, chanting Buddhist monks. It's whatever the family wants, however they want their graveside ceremony to be. There's an overlook highest point. And it's a good place to go and reflect after a burial or when you come back to visit. The area in the background there is a place where we did some restoration recently. We have a wildlife management team and ecological advisory committee that helps us decide what's best for keeping the land good for the wildlife, restoring it. And we recently, just back up here, we recently got a grant from the NRCS, the National Resource Conservation Service, to open up some area that used to be meadow, where the meadowlark bird came and nested in the spring, and then it started to grow up, and we got the grant to clear that out. So our caretaker and staff worked really hard this past year to do that, and now it's all opened up, and we hope when the meadowlarks are cruising by this spring, they spot it and say, oh, there's a good place to go. They used to be up there, and I think they'll be back. This is the cart made by the local vocational school kids. We refer to it as our pallbearer's friend. It helps us carry a casket or a shrouded body to the gravesite. There are times when people choose to do that themselves, but we usually use this cart. It goes through any kind of terrain, snow, rain. We can accommodate a lot of people at Greensprings. This was our biggest burial. There were 400 people attending. It was really quite nice. They had 2 rows of people coming all the way down the hill, 5 people deep. Everybody held a flower. And it was one of those tragic deaths that happened. This man was 63 years old, unexpected, big in the community. A lot of times musical instruments are there, and I'm not sure if this fellow on the if he's holding his hat on or if he's too close to the bagpipe, but we have guitars, mandolins, all kinds of people bring instruments and do songs, a celebration at the gravesite, dancers. It's just so different. There have been some burials that people have filled in by themselves. It takes a real commitment to do that because we don't have the backhoe driver there. Usually we fill in with the backhoe. But when there's a large party, it seems to be a particular group of people that are all friends. There have been about three or four of them buried there, and they fill in the whole grave. It takes time and patience and dedication. People bring their own minister or celebrant, or they handle the service themselves. A lot of times they stand around and do readings, songs, memories, stories, laughing, crying. It's the natural setting that makes natural burial so different, and it's healing. They have we cut boughs and put them over the mound so that it softens the dirt a little bit. There's a lot of stones in these mounds, and then people put the boughs down over the grave. When in the fall, when nature paints the magic colors on the trees, it's spectacular. In that particular, you can see that everything has been mowed here. We usually let it grow up. We mow it once a year in the fall after the nesting birds are gone. And this is just about right before the peak color change. So the nature of natural burial. This is the part that I experienced last July 2nd when we buried my mom. I'd never been on that side of it before, and losing someone so close. I have a friend buried up there, but this was my mom. And the element that is natural burial is about the setting, the surroundings. You're out in this beautiful place, no matter what the weather is. 8,000 acres of forest surrounding you. There's the Arnott Forest on one side and the Newfield State Forest. We've got really good neighbors. So it's that element, the heart-to-heart connection with the family, the friends that are there, the person that you've just buried, the spirit that oftentimes I feel is just hovering over the grave. It's that element that makes natural burial so special and so healing, a connectedness. As the natural burial movement grows, it has the potential, given the raw dollars spent each year on burials, to save hundreds of thousands of acres of land all across North America, in places just like Greensprings. Oops. Save a forest, plant yourself.